Teachers, what's the weirdest thing you've had to take away from a student? A picture they'd drawn of me in a teeny bikini. At the time I was a fairly out of shape man in my late 30s. Not a good look. The care they'd taken drawing a pair of gigantic pendulous breasts, which I don't have, was unsettling. The same student also wrote Fokran in a bikini on a feedback form asking if there was anything they needed in class. Ziploc bags filled with water. That was a trend for a while at my school. Kids would claim they needed it in case they got thirsty, but usually would just try to pop them in each other's laps during class. Had to take a computer away from a kid because he had 2 Google tabs, search and images, open with the search naked nude Pokemon porn in class. Taking a computer away isn't super weird, but that reason has stuck with me for a while. A wine cooler that looked like a Capri Sun. This was a second grader and she was just getting ready to drink it. A homemade shiv. His dad has just gotten out of jail and given it to him, so he brought it to school. I teach kindergarten, by the way. Chef's knife stuffed in the waistband of his sweatpants, no underwear, during a snowstorm. My sister's teacher had to call my dad about a suspicious powder my sister was eating out of a bag at school. She was dipping her finger in a bag of powdered jello and eating it and letting other kids do the same. There was a boy in my 7th grade class that wasn't allowed to have coins because he'd eat them. A can of Cheese Whiz. It was from a student visiting from another country, and she was enamored of the incredible canned cheese product she had discovered. So much so, she kept either opening her backpack to stare lovingly at it or taking it out during class to get some sweet cheesy goodness. It was pretty cute actually, and I made sure she got her cheese product returned to her at the end of class. Man, did she love Cheese Whiz. Christmas ornaments. They were throwing them at each other and it eventually caused a fight. Next to that would be a curtain rod. He found it and kept hitting people with it. A girl had about 50 plastic spoons in her pocket. She tripped and they all fell out. We all found it hilarious, but a high-up teacher was walking by and made her pick them up. She was going to anyway, and put them all in the bin. He was probably very confused over the whole situation. Panties. They had fallen out of a girl's gym bag in the previous class. When I came in the room after standing duty in the hall, 3 boys were flinging them back and forth across the room. Never a dull moment. Not a teacher, but if you were to ask her, this would probably be it. Various vegetables. She was super strict about no phones and would check at the slightest sign you might have your phone. As half protest half prank we began our shenanigans. A girl's family member passed away and was texting on her phone about it to other family members. The teacher took her phone. So we began bringing in potatoes, celery, carrots, tomatoes, and other vegetables. We'd smuggle them into class and then hold them under our desks and look at them as though we were texting. She kept trying to catch us, but then just thought we were weird. This goes on for at least a week. Finally she instituted a zero-tolerance policy against vegetables. So we switched to fruit. So for a few weeks she was constantly confiscating various fruits and vegetables. We finally stopped when it wasn't as fun anymore, and she wasn't never ever quite as strict about phones after that. An entire menagerie of live insects. One afternoon my class decided that they should see how many bugs they could capture and keep alive in my classroom. The next day, I returned from covering lunch duty in another part of the school and noticed that one of the cubbies had paper towel taped over the front like a curtain. Before I could investigate, I noticed several Tupperware containers hiding in desks. Dozens of worms, that was the cubby, many assorted beetles, uncounted ants, 4 bees, a wasp, and, most upsetting, several flies which were crazy glued to index cards and had their wings removed. That was a long day and a long year. Instant pudding. My student was mixing it in a large Cool Whip container, using milk from lunch, right in the middle of a lesson on Macbeth. Not a teacher, but my wife is. Several years ago she was teaching 2nd or 4th grade and the kids were instructed to have their snack time. She stepped over to the door to talk to another teacher while the kids ate, and one student came over and tattled that another student had a snack he should not have. My wife scolded the tattler for tattling lol, but the kid was insistent. Wife decided to check and the other kid had legit cracked open a Bud Light Lime-A-Rita for snack time. Former teacher here. Wasn't part of the initial apprehension but was part of the follow-up investigation. Weirdest thing was a bag of turtles. Yep. Kid caught a bunch of the little salmonella-filled red-eared sliders at a local pond on his way to school one day. We had a turtle black market at the school by noon, and by the end of the day the principal had a dozen in a bowl in his office. Kid got caught because a terrible smell was reported from his locker. Janitor opened it up and there was a bag of turtles. The rest of the day was spent tracking down the ones that had already been sold. Edit, I've owned a few reptiles as pets. To my knowledge small, under 4 inches, red-eared sliders have been illegal in the pet trade for quite some time due to a risk of salmonella in their skin. All turtles that were brought to school were under 4 inches. Principal released turtles to pond that evening. Middle school, kid was 7th grader. The best business venture we had at the school was when a different kid, who walked to school would stop and buy 10 to 15 Monster Energy drinks from a convenience store in the morning and sell them at school. Kid banked. The operation was eventually shut down. Wish I knew what kid was doing now. Obligatory, not a teacher, I'm an EA, educational assistant, in a school. Plastic spoons. Hundreds of them. I still don't know why, but one grade 5 kid came to school with his backpack stuffed full. Nothing else was in his backpack, not even his lunch. He hung it on the back of the chair and pulled out a spoon and was fiddling around with it instead of doing work. So I took the spoon away. 10 minutes later he has another one. I took that. 10 more minutes a third. The teacher took it away. 10 minutes later another, you can see the pattern here. I finally opened his backpack when I saw him grab the 6th or 7th spoon, and the bag was full. Obviously the teacher had to call home since he had no lunch. Mom comes, looks at him with just resignation, and goes, "Why?" as she hands him his lunch. He shrugged, grinned, and walked back to class. Mom is clearly used to it and has learned to go with the flow. Not a teacher, but in 3rd grade the teacher had to confiscate all the origami cranes in the room because one kid decided to make and sell them at a quarter apiece. He got caught when he started selling on the playground. I thought it was effed up we had to give up all the paper cranes in our desks, but we didn't get our quarters back. I named mine Swan and was very sad to see her go. A flavored condom. From a kindergartner. This little boy comes into music class, at 1 p.m. or so, and he's been at school since 9 o'clock, and says to me, "Look. I have a candy." And holds up a wrapped strawberry flavored condom. Trying to cause a scene, I tell him, "Remember, we're not going to eat in music class because it's hard to sing with candy in our mouths." I pointed out the pocket on his jean jacket with a snap button closure and tell him to put it in there, making a mental note to tell teacher later. I always try to avoid losing control of a room of 20 and 5 6-year-olds. Kid puts condom in his pocket, and I start music class. Later on, I see him putting something in his mouth. Put that back in your pocket for after school or something to that effect. Pretty sure food is scarce at home, to taking it away would have been a huge scene. Teacher comes at the end of the half-hour lesson and I discreetly tell her what's going on and she says she'll handle it. Great. After school, the middle-aged, male school counselor comes up to me and says, "Thanks to you I've been walking around an elementary school all afternoon with a flavored condom in my pocket." Sorry, not sorry. Edit, the wrapper had pictures of strawberries on it. Also, I don't know how many of you have ever tried to take candy from a 5-year-old, but it doesn't go well. Especially if you take candy from a kid who doesn't have a lot of food at home and then put it in the garbage in front of him. It would have been a massive scene and the other 20 kids would have gone wild. I chose to keep the problem as controlled as possible. This kid had a backpack full of baby rabbits. He found them in the field on the way to school. They were so tiny and vulnerable. We both cried. Not a teacher, but our vice principal had to confiscate a lobster from us after we bought it as a birthday gift for a friend. For those asking, it was a live lobster. We wrapped it in a box with some holes poked in it. When we presented it to him during first break, he just heard something scratching inside it and asked, "What the F is this?" Handcuffs. From an 8-year-old girl. Not quite police grade, but more than just some adult fun cuffs. Sent that down to the counselor. This is my brother's story, and he was the kid. It was a sandwich bag full of spiders. He collected them during recess, and one of the monitors probably got freaked out.